Everyone. Recently, there was
This
some
is
really
tragic.
tragic news out of Fort Lauderdale. It was about those two teenagers
Two
whose bodies
teenagers.
were found in the landing gear of a
How
JetBlue
did they
plane.
get in landing gear?
So we're going to do a deep dive on what we know about this whole thing. This was a flight that originated in New York and landed in Fort Lauderdale on January 6th. And it was during a routine, post-flight check that this gruesome discovery was made.
Yeah, it's really sad. And we've since learned the names of these young men. DNA testing confirmed that it was 18-year-old Jake Lucy and 16-year-old Elvis Castillo.
Oh my god.
Really puts the gravity of the situation into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, I think the first questions anyone would have, and definitely the questions we had going in, were, how did this happen? What were the circumstances that could possibly lead to something like this? And, what does this tell us about just how incredibly dangerous it is to even think about stowing away on a plane?
Right. And those are all critical points we're going to look at today. But first of all, we got to say that it's still not completely clear how these teenagers got into the plane in the first
That's
place.
what.
That's something that's still being investigated.
Right. And we should probably talk about what kind of conditions they might have faced once they were in there. Aviation expert Gary Sharatsky gave some pretty intense insights into what it's like inside the landing gear compartment of a plane while it's at cruising altitude. We're talking no pressure, temperatures potentially plunging to -40, even -70 degrees Fahrenheit, and basically no air to breathe.
Yeah, it's just an incredibly hostile environment. Sharatsky even said it was definitely below zero. It's probably an unbelievable way to die.
Yeah.
I mean, you combine that kind of freezing cold with the lack of oxygen at 30,000 feet. It just makes survival pretty much impossible. And that's not even factoring in the mechanical dangers of the landing gear itself. It can retract and deploy, and when it does, it's with enormous force.
And let's not forget that this JetBlue flight to Fort Lauderdale wasn't direct. It actually started in New York, then went to Jamaica, then Salt Lake City, and before that, it had even been to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic.
Which ties into one of the teenagers, Elvis Castillo. His mother reported that he was taken to an airport in the Dominican Republic back on January 4th, and that was the last she heard from him. But we should be clear here. Authorities haven't confirmed whether or not the teens were actually trying to stow away on this particular flight.
It's just such a tragic story. And it's actually not the only incident like this we've heard about recently. Remember that incident on Christmas Eve in Hawaii? A United Airlines flight from Chicago to Maui. They found a body in the Rio well there, too. And again, they still don't know how that person even got in there.
It's true. And when you see a pattern like that, even if these incidents are thankfully rare, it does raise some serious questions about security and vulnerabilities around aircraft. We don't know if these two incidents are connected in any way, but it definitely makes you think.
It absolutely does. And it is worth pointing out that JetBlue is fully cooperating with the investigation into this case. That's really important if we're going to get a better understanding of what happened and how we can prevent something like this from happening again.
So to sum up what we've covered in this deep dive, we're talking about a heartbreaking situation with the loss of two young lives. And it highlights the unbelievably dangerous conditions that exist in the landing gear compartment of an aircraft. Conditions that are basically unsurvivable. And the investigation into exactly how they were able to get onto that plane is ongoing.
And for everyone listening, the real takeaway here is that stowing away on an airplane is incredibly dangerous. It's the kind of thing that has a very, very high chance of being fatal. We're talking extreme cold, lack of oxygen, and the danger of the landing gear itself. Those factors together mean almost certain death.
And it really makes you think, doesn't it? Given the circumstances, what does it say about the desperation that would lead someone to take such a massive risk? And how do we balance the need for security with recognizing those very real and often difficult circumstances that some people face?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
See you next time.
Thanks.